Hello, welcome to my bedroom, and today we're going to be doing a recitation video of Pessimistic Poets and Women by Kitamura Tōkoku. So this translation is by Professor Morrison's friend, his brilliant friend, David J Gundry, and Professor Morrison will do another study guide video at a later date, but for now let's just do a short biography of Tōkoku-san. He was born in 1868 and he died in 1894. He was a romantic poet, an essayist, and a critic, and he died unfortunately by suicide at the age of 25. He attended Tokyo Senmon Gakko, which is now known as Waseda University, with aim to become a politician, but he got expelled after joining the Jiyu Minken Undo, which was the freedom and people's rights movement. He eventually quit that movement also to become a novelist as well as a Christian. He got married in 1888. He published his famous long narrative poem Soushu no Shi, which means the poem of the prisoner, in 1889, and a poetic drama called the Horai Kyoku, which means the drama of Mount Horai, in 1891. In 1893, he, along with another prominent naturalist novelist called Shimazaki Tozon, launched the magazine Bungakukai, which means literary world, which published a series of his reviews and essays called Naibu Seimeiron, Theory of the Eternal Life, which became a key essay in Japan's emergent romanticism movement. He's often accredited with introducing the concept of renai, chivalrous, kind of platonic, chivalrous love between people, as opposed to the more traditional concept of koi, which is more romantic, erotic love. Without further ado, then, let's get started on this, which, let me find the Japanese name real quick. Yes. So in English, this title is called Pessimistic Poets and Women, but the original title is Ensei Shika to Jōsei. And again, it was translated by David J Gundry. Here we go. Love is the secret key to human life. Only when there is love is there life. Without love, what charm would life have? However, why is it that those prodigies we call poets, who most examine human life and plumb its hidden depths, should also most sin in love? Cases in which poets past and present have failed in love are beyond counting, to such an extent as to caution women against becoming the wives of poets. How can poets be unfeeling creatures? It is obvious that the depth of their feeling is many times greater than that of ordinary people. However, why is it that few have fully attained a happy marital union? The reason why Goethe, with his genius, was said by later generations to have had a head of gold and a heart of lead was that he was not entirely faithful in love. And then there was Byron, who, despite his sublime qualities, cast his chaste, demure wife to suspect he was a madman, and when he wandered through Italy, brought those who had wives or daughters strictly to limit his visits. Or let us take the case of Shelley, whose wedded bliss had not lasted long before his wife left him and took her own life, and the husband's life, too, fell short of its natural span. Even the austere and solemn Milton was once in point of following in their footsteps, and even in the case of the lofty Carlyle, the ugly truth about his unhappy marriage was discovered when his papers were printed after his death. If one includes Marlowe, Ben Jonson, and others, can there be anyone who would not fear being the wife of a poet? Are love and thought enemies? How little do we realize that love is the nursemaid that nurtures and purifies thought. Emerson said that the cold philosopher can never repay the debts incurred by the soul when it was a wandering youth driven by the savage force of love. Love leaves its handwriting within the breast of every human being, and even if this cannot be seen by others, miraculously, it can never be erased one's whole life long. However, although at first sight love appears to be dark and lowly, this is not its true nature. One who does not have love is one who stands on ground that is somehow lonely, like a grove of trees to which spring has not yet come, and I would say that it is only after passing through a season of love that each individual can cross through the threshold of life's secrets. Love offers a clear view that penetrates through to the truth of beauty. Until one experiences love, one does not concern oneself with society, as if it were a total stranger. It is only after one has love that one's feelings for the pathos of things and perception of nature shed their tentativeness and gain a vivid sense of reality, as if one has moved from a neighboring house into one's own home. I dare say people are naturally endowed with reason, and by temperament nourish hopes, and do not content themselves with the present. A child who has grown up straight without being troubled by the entanglements of society has developed in his own ideal world and does not know the real world. However, there is probably no one who during a lifetime does not come into the intimate contact with the real world and become enfolded by it, and it is certainly that one's ideal world, which is to say the world of innocence, will inevitably reach a time where it will struggle with the real world, namely this floating world, this world of illusion. The real world is a powerful force, and it is only in ignorance of the discord of society that the ideal world can come into existence. Once one has been prodded by this floating world, even if he fights hard, in the end he will inevitably meet the unhappy fate of having his bow break and his bow break and his arrows run out. At this moment, what will the defeated general of the ideal world, frustrated and mentally exhausted, seek that will bring him satisfaction? Toil, duty, and other cares make up the flying column of the real world, which constantly reconnoiters the ideal world, and these, together with 100 other matters, press upon him and cross swords with him. What is it that, in the end, aids him and makes him content? I say it is love. It is in fact at this point that he longingly searches the heavens for a beautiful woman, and tosses and turns in bed at night. To consider that it is only for psychological reasons that men and women yearn for one another is to equate human beings with beasts. Saying that outbursts of passion simultaneously produce love is the vice with which so-called novelists have, since the golden days, debased human life and shrunk it to fit their own vulgar ideals. How can love be a simple yearning? It is love that provides a citadel allowing the defeated general of the ideal world to take refuge from the war between the ideal world and the real world. It is precisely because there is love that human beings, with their rational nature, do not all die from woe, and it is precisely because there is love that they summon the courage to plunge into the real world. Coleridge's argument in a critique of Romeo and Juliet that for Romeo love was the love of his own idea, and that his first love, Rosalind, was a provisional embodiment of this idea, should sufficiently admonish the many writers who view love as an animal desire and do not see through to its true nature. Love expands beyond the boundaries of the delicate music that is said to have made the obdurate Byron weep. Love is a pure jewel that Goethe, extolled for the subtlety of his art, could not himself have devised. It was also mainly love that brought the towering yet gentle Dante to cry out to heaven and earth, and it was Swift's defeat in love that caused him to lead a miserable life to the end of his days. O love, how lamentable it is that you, such a powerful force, should shower so many cruelties on poets, whom you nurture and by whom you are so ardently sought. Sneering at women has become the norm among pessimists both east and west. Shakyamuni inveighed against women with all his might, and Shakespeare often gave vent to his dissatisfaction with women. Well, what I most admire is how our own Koda Rohan displayed his philosophical ideas in skillfully creating the character of Oran in Ikoken, a sword, and how he went on to relate his spiritual release in Furyogo, enlightenment of love. I dare say that women are emotional creatures, and poets, too, are so richly endowed with emotion that they should be called women among men. Can't women also be poets? No. Byron, who played with guns in the middle of the night and frightened people in their bedroom, was not necessarily a madman. I dare say that women are in a way extremely narrow-minded and stubborn. Poets, viewed from a certain standpoint, cannot help but resemble them in certain ways. I dare say women are elegant and delicate, and poets in their thoughts are, as a rule, elegant and delicate as well. Since poets take elegance as their guiding principle even when they pour forth mighty heroic verse, they naturally cannot help but bear certain resemblances to women. Moreover, if one were to conduct a detailed psychological investigation of the temperament of poets, their similarities to women, such as their nervousness and the strength of their emotional attachments, would probably be too numerous to mention. Given the aversion one feels for one's own gender, is it because poets possess such points of similarity with women that they in the end fail to reach a state of complete wedded bliss? This might be the case, I hold myself to a different opinion, and implore persons of intelligence to give it their consideration. While those who fail fully to attain wedded bliss are the norm among poets, the fact that such cases are particularly numerous among pessimistic poets has led me to the following thoughts. Fundamentally, it is a natural principle that from the moment in life when thought sends forth its first tender shoots, human beings desire the good and the beautiful and detest that which is ugly and base. When one who is still inexperienced in the world and has not yet seen through to its inner recesses first views the discord and conflicts of life, these things clash greatly with his own initial ideals, and the sights and spectacles of the real world make him feel vaguely miserable. It is perfectly natural that in the period of early youth, when knowledge and experience are at odds with one another, and delusion struggles with true perception, one should be quick to view this floating world with suspicion and hatred. People are not born with a sense of duty, nor are they born with morals. Duty and morality are cognizant upon one's gaining insight into society and forming a clear picture of the self. Who can help but engender pessimistic thoughts when, as a naive youth unaware of duty or morality, his first encounters with the complex, enigmatic inner secrets of society? When sincerity and faith, one could triumph over pessimistic thoughts. However, sincerity and faith are extremely difficult to achieve, so much so that even the great saint, the Apostle Paul cried, "Alas, I am a sinner." Thus, it is an extraordinary man indeed who has thoroughly come to know pessimism, yet possesses sincerity and faith strong enough to triumph over it. As I see it, optimism, like Pope's, may be considered the optimism of spiritual release, as can be seen in the following verse. All nature is but art unknown to thee, all chance, direction, which thou canst not see, all discord harmony not understood, all partial evil, universal good, and spite of pride, in erring reason's spite. One truth is clear, whatever is right. I dare say such an outlook comes from a man who believes he has rebuffed awful pressures in his life with his own strength, and is fundamentally the result of experience. On the whole, such a spiritual release is unimaginable in the thought without experience. So much the phenomenon of the real world all look false in the eyes of such unexperienced youth with pure ideas who have not triumphed over pessimism through sincerity and faith, and have not defeated pessimism through experience. I say no. Among them there is one thing that does not look false, something that looks as if not even death could snatch away its sincerity and faith. What is it? I say it is love. Although passion possesses an inherent propensity for doing battle, when it advances into the realm of love, it becomes a thing of complete peace and harmony, and causes one unconsciously to form the picture of perfection in one woman. When one faces his beloved, he has no formidable foes between heaven and earth. All dissatisfaction and discord withdraw, letting the angel of true beauty take their place. Youthful thought is often trampled on by the real world, and it is an unavoidable fact that, especially when the imaginative brains of those we call poets are in the prime of their youth, these thoughts can barely withstand the attacks of the real world, not to mention the case of those pessimists who regard our pitiful human existence as nothing but a world of pollution. How can such men help but garrison themselves frequently in the stronghold that is love? How can they fail to regard love as more important than the beloved? Love is not just concerned with the present. In part, it belongs to hope, and that is to say, it is something that brings about the hope that will become an ally, a comforter in one's better half. Among the things belonging to this world, be it honor or profit, be it the jeweled crown of kings or the riches of a railroad tycoon, a pessimist finds nothing on which to place particular hope. Worldly hopes and a pessimist must therefore be as incompatible as oil and water. However, this one thing, love, alone possesses the secret key allowing it to creep into the doleful breast of the pessimist and miraculously raise some hope within him. Passion by nature cannot be tranquil, and once passion enters someone's heart, it always throws it into chaos. Much more, it is obvious that when the imagination of a pessimist, normally easily excited, encounters this sincere love, without resistance and in the space of an instant, it is defeated by a strange, magical power, begins to brew up hope from nothing, and gives over its entire heart as a slave of passion. Love is a clear mirror that simultaneously sacrifices the ego and reflects the self, that is the ego. Only after experiencing the love between man and a woman can one know the true nature of society, and it is only after climbing the first step that it is mutual love that one can also understand the principle that is not even a single tiny insect functions freely and independently, and that human beings are only able to build love and maintain a society together by entrusting themselves to each other and embracing one another. As long as one lives alone, the necessary elements that form a single unit in society will never come together. Only after two individuals have bonded together do they become a single unit in society. Only then can they see themselves clearly in relation to society. When a man has become one with a woman, he feels as if even the clouds drifting through the sky have faces, as if the voice of every bird in the forest carries a tune, as if yesterday occurred several decades ago, and as if today is an existence that will extend over many lifetimes. Society, which until now has kept its distance, suddenly presses close. The duties and formalities that have until now not concerned him deeply also quickly come barging in and cause him to change the circumstances of his life, so that he is compelled to move from formless to form, to shift from heedless to prudence, and become connected to the network of social organization, making that which was irregular fall into regularity. In other words, he leaves the ideal world and becomes a captive of the real world, and loses the freedom of the ideal world for the fetters of the real world. Or, to put it briefly in the words of the athlete, marriage vulgarizes people. However, vulgarization is the means by which one comes to occupy a normal position in life. It is only after a person has come to occupy his proper position that a sense of duty towards God and towards human beings, and the morality that the ancients compared to a resplendent flower, can come into existence within him. Therefore, by vulgarizing people, marriage causes them to become serious, and I would say that reducing delusion and increasing true perception are the indispensable basis for preparing to enter the noontime of life. I have already stated why pessimists are more vehement in their attitude towards love than ordinary people. How strange it is that, just as love can easily dazzle a pessimist, marriage can very easily disappoint him. Fundamentally, pessimists are people who cannot conform to society's regulations and do not make society their home. They are people who neither love nor are loved by the world, as in the English verse, I love not the world, nor the world me. They are people who cannot be restricted by norms, and who cannot recognize ordinary pleasures, as in the English verse, my pleasure is not that of the world, etc. In a word, they are people who lack the qualifications that enable people to organize society in this world of illusion that they disparage as a polluted realm. Therefore, the union of marriage into which they entered with many hopes and dreams only seems to make them step into hostile territory. As they see their true image in the clear mirror of love, the level of their pessimism is likely to become even higher, and the pleasures of marriage lack sufficient power to lead them to faith and optimism. While pessimists do indeed have a mentality that rejects the world, it is unimaginable that they should be constrained by the world. It is because of this that marriage makes them detest the world all the more, makes them go against their duty all the more, and makes them all the more unsatisfied. Therefore, marriage, in which they first enter overburdened with hope, later causes them to feel even more disappointed than they would have otherwise, giving rise to disastrous relationships between husband and wife. Since women are emotional creatures, they love because they are loved more often than because they themselves love. It is indeed more their proper place to requite love than to initiate it. A woman is one who leans on a man like a vine entwined with a tree trunk, who derives joy or sorrow from a man's every action, and who is controlled by the love of a man. But unfortunately, if she sees signs of aversion towards her in a man's attitude, jealousy and suspicion arise within her, and she develops feelings of resentment and bitterness. If a man does nothing to counteract this, true love may go wrong and lead something totally unforeseen. And as for one who already loathes society, who is filled with destructive thoughts, and who does not place importance on customary duties and morals, namely the pessimistic poet, in the end, how can he be expected to reach a state of complete harmony with a woman? A poet is a stubborn creature who, preferring not to stride down the path of life and society, wanders in a world he himself has created. As for the follower of pessimism, one can say that the world he creates differs greatly from the real world. Because he has become a captive of the real world through marriage, his own ideal world feels more and more constricted, and the person whom he at first loved as the fortress of his ideals later seems as if she has become the odious chain of love that restrains him. This is what caused Shakyamuni to revile woman, saying, "Alas, I was deluded. Now when I look with my naked eyes, I see nothing desirable in her form from head to toe." He also shouted, "Her inside is fetid and filthy, and her external appearance heavily adorned. Moreover, a poison lurks therein as powerful as that of a snake or a dragon, as well as the friendship of a woman is not constant. It flickers like the flame of a lantern. It is her resentment that is constant, like a pattern carved in stone." These and other similar utterances on his part brought about the long-standing evil of the mistreatment of women by the pessimistic religions of the East. Emerson aptly stated that marriage and death are what human beings constantly speak of from the time they are small, all children who can barely speak their mother tongue, up until they approach the grave. It is part of the natural sequence of life for a little boy going to school with a romance in his pocket to trade blushes with a girl, and for the child who reads storybooks in kana already to imagine in his innocence what love is. And loving well should be the same great imperative as leaving the world properly. Through love, a human being can unify his ideals. Through marriage, he is taken from the ideal world and made a captive of the real world. Through death, he slips away from the real world and the material world. In the beginning, love is fundamentally a matter of loving one's own idea, and since one's female partner is a provisional embodiment of this idea, even if this love reaches even greater heights, in the end the time must come when it changes from wild passion to tranquil affection. How regrettable it is that for a pessimistic poet this tranquil affection comes to be like a heavy burden, to such a point that his feeling of marital bliss may break off. In a poem of the time when he had left England, Byron said, "For who would trust the seeming sighs of wife or paramour? Truly this must reveal the mind of a pessimist." The poem by the same author, entitled To Woman, should provide a sufficient glimpse into the heart of the poet who, even in a country where relations between the sexes are as strict as they are in England, gave vent to such unbridled words. Alas, it is women who are the unfortunate ones. To pessimistic poets they represent wondrous beauty and grace, yet at the same time they are reviled and mistreated by them as the mouthpieces of the ugly and impure everyday world. How awful that they, to the end of their days, should swallow their tears, and in both slumber and daydreams should yearn for and resent their husbands, who in the end kill them with grief. Byron confessed, when lovers break up, it is as if both are left in an eternal wintry night. All right, so that's that one. Quite a short reading this time. Again, Professor Morrison is going to make a study guide to go along with this one, and I hope you guys all enjoy it. Bye-bye now.